Okay, I'm going to record a quick video for you all just to show you a little bit about how to use the basic functions of Fusion 360. This is for the Medieval Iberia Architectural Encounters of Medieval Iberia course. And so therefore, just to keep it on theme and to show you a little bit about the mathematics of Islamic architecture, I thought we would do a little bit just to some basic ideas about how these Muqarnas vaults or kind of honeycomb vaults are designed. And so it actually isn't quite as complicated as it may appear, but it does require some setup. So what I'll do is start by showing you the way that I'm working, which is to go um, back in my history and show you sort of the very beginning of the process. So one of the things that you'll notice when you open up Fusion 360 is that there are lots of there's kind of a hierarchy set up where for you all you should be right here under triplet course projects right after I send you an invitation to that. So that is your team. Within teams, you can have projects such as these. Okay, so these are some of my students in my other course. When you create a new project, as you can do right here, it's going to ask you to name the project right away, and you might want to call this like your last name uh, and tutorials, etc. Something like that, and then maybe the name of the course. For me, I'll just say triplet. Call this Muqarnas. Why not? Once you've created a project, you can see it's sort of taking me all the way down to the bottom with that name. So here's Triplet Muqarnas. I'm going to open up that project, and you can create folders as well as new. This is what you're looking at right here is what's called a design. So I can create a new folder called um, videos because that's what I'm recording, and then I can I can go ahead and start a new design on top of here. And if I were to, for instance, do the first step of my process, which is to insert some sort of pattern on the ground, you all can find this in a number of different places. I will actually flash the screen in just a second here to show you a few places I found some. So one place that I found some really great stuff was this particular. It's a write up. It's a little bit like a white paper um, from Utrecht University, the Faculty of Science. This is a mathematics project where they're really going through the patterns of Muqarnas domes and all of the different pieces that are required. Now, this is the kind of figures that I'm talking about. Um, Shiro, everyone is taking these from Shiro Takashi. These are really fantastic. They break down by color the level that each of the pieces is supposed to be on. The other thing that I really like about this write up is, they're keeping things consistent in here, but also if I can roll down a little bit, they break down what are the very basic parts of a Muqarnas vault, which is really just this concept of the roof and the facet, and the roof is just one angle that, as long as you keep the exact same angle throughout the process, then you'll have things that line up no matter how complicated they may appear. So you can see there are intermediate elements that they talk about, which are things like this, as opposed to the majors, which are sort of A, C, D here, as opposed to the B's. Um, this is how they explain actually going back to a medieval source and Islamic work of mathematics that explained exactly how to produce the correct angle, which you see here, which I'm going to go over with you. And then the elements of the Muqarnas that I really like. So the idea that all of these things can kind of be broken down into squares, rhombuses, jugs, what they call jug, almonds, bipeds, two different types of those, and what half square triangle and half rhombus. And these are sort of the intermediate ones. And they are slightly different scale. So really, these are really fantastic, and I'm going to share this with you all later. So let's get back to Fusion really quick. Um, so in Fusion, here we are. I'm going to just drop in, just to sort of help me see things clearly. I'm going to drop in an image to use on the background. And I'll just say insert from my computer. And I already have a few things here. I'll just grab this one and I'll hit open. And it's now asking where do you want to put the canvas. I'm going to put this canvas on the ground. And then I'm just going to scale it up kind of arbitrarily for now, just so I can see everything pretty well. And I'll hit OK. So this is not to scale, as we would call it. I'm going to hold down Shift and middle mouse button to sort of turn my view. I can also grab the view cube. I don't like using that method because it's really so much to keep moving back and around. But if you do have a 3-button mouse, which you all should, you should be able to hold down Shift and middle mouse, and it'll rotate you. Obviously, your mouse wheel will zoom you in and out. And panning is simply the middle mouse button left and right, okay, without holding Shift. So those are the basics there. Let me close this up. There's a couple things I want to do. I am going to open this canvas. I'm going to edit it again, and I just want to rotate it. You see how it says top this way? I'm just going to rotate this so it's actually facing the correct direction, so that we can read it correctly where it says top this way. Text is correct. That's fine. The next thing that we want to do is we want to actually calibrate it, which means we want to make sure that whatever our scale is going to be for one square, we want it to match this object. So what I'll do, I think, is I'm going to say that between here and here is 1 unit, and I'm just going to make that 1 meter. Now this is quite large. You can see your units right here under meters. Now that's actually is quite big. Another thing I might do, if I want to right click and hit edit again, is to get maybe to get these squares so that they line up a little bit better with the grid. So this, I'm looking at these squares right here, and they're lining up okay. And I'll just, all right, so that's pretty roughly done. Not too sophisticated, but if you all are doing this with architectural plans, you'll want to know how to do that. And keeping in mind that you can also put images on this plane, so if you had elevations or sections, you can do that too. Okay, so I'm just going to start, just by kind of showing you the really basics, and then I'll flip over to my kind of finished product, sort of like the cooking show analogy. So I'm going to create, the way that Fusion works is it works off of sketches and bodies and components. So sketches are the 2-dimensional objects that essentially are mostly responsible for forming these 3-dimensional bodies. When you collect a whole bunch of bodies together, let's say it's a part of an airplane or something along those lines, because this is engineering software, then they will call that a component when you kind of connect a few bodies together. We're not going to mess around with components. Let's start with sketches first. And it's now asking me, after I've hit create sketch, where do you want to draw? And I'm going to draw on the ground here. That will allow me, when I start creating things like rectangles up here, I'm going to kind of zoom in and say, well, I know that I want this to be 1 by 1, so I'm going to click it once, type the number 1, hit tab again, and hit 1 again. Okay, so this is now, we can see the basis for the pattern that I'm going to create here. In order to to get this system to work, what we're going to need to do is make sure that everything that should be a length of 1 will be a length of 1. So this rhombus, right? We remember from basic geometry, rhombuses all have the same. They don't have the same angle, but they have the same length sides. So there's a few different ways that you can do that. One of the ways that I like is if you were to maybe just, I have the select button going on here. I'm going to select all of these pieces. I'm going to right click and say move copy. Um, oh, sometimes this is a little particular, so I'm just going to click it once and then hit the M key for move. Okay, that's better. Um, this will allow me to create a copy, so I'm going to hit create copy, and it says only one piece is selected, so only one line. I'm going to select all four of these lines. Okay, so there's four. And I'm just going to move it, and it's created my copy. I can move it point to point, which I really like, which is to go say, I want to move from, we're creating that copy. Let me undo that quickly. It looks like I made a mistake. Select my pieces. This is always a little persnickety. I'm going to click it once, hit the M key, do this one more time. I'll click on point to point, then select create copy. My origin point is going to be here, and it's going to immediately shift down to my target point. My target point will be there, okay, and that's okay. I also want to now translate it or rotate it. I'm going to, let's move it and rotate it a bit, and I'm going to set my pivot right here. And from there, I should be able to, once I'm done moving the pivot, I can then rotate this 45 degrees. So just like that. I'll hit OK. So now I'm certain that these are the same. Okay. So there's lots of other ways that you can do this. Like for instance, you can use the mirror tool. I'm going to just double click and select all of these, and I'll say mirror. I'm actually going to deselect one of these lines. I don't need to double that line up, but my mirror line will be here, and I'll hit OK. That's another method I can use. Another thing I can do is just draw, if I want this to be a rhombus, I can just sort of draw these things out. And if I know where it needs to go, I can sort of just eyeball it here and say, oh, okay, I've got my rhombus. Looks like I've made yet a much worse mistake there. That's not what I wanted to do. But what I love about Fusion is that you can see there are some things going on here that are what are called constraints. Because I was generally drawing a straight line, it assumed I wanted that to be a perfectly horizontal line, so it gives me a constraint symbol that this has to be horizontal, which is good. You can see vertical here as well, and these are also constraints to size that you can see. The other thing that you can do is you can select something after the fact and say that you wish it to be equal to something else. So add your constraints later. So I'm going to say this needs to be equal to that. And because mathematically I don't necessarily need to do that with this one, but if I wanted to, I could say this one needs to be equal to this one. And that's fine. Okay, so now everything is equal. If I had, oh, I don't know, if I draw a line right through here, I can select this line and hit the X key to turn it into a construction line. So you can see that I can still select the entire square here. I could even use this as a guideline for other objects. I could use these points as well. I don't necessarily need it, but if I wanted to select maybe just these two lines here, I can mirror off of those. Mirror off this one. I really didn't need to draw that line. It's really okay, but there you go. From here, you could just simply select, maybe hold down Shift and select these four. And because of the way that we've done this, I could mirror again and say my mirror line is here, and then we're going to finish up those rhombuses at the top. And you know that everything is working correctly if when you hover over that everything is a solid blue. Okay, so that's sort of the basics of sketching. It's really not that complicated. What I really want to show you is the way to create your first curve. So let me, I suppose I'll save this. and I'm going to give it a name in the video, so 2D video practice. Okay, so if you know that that's the direction it's going to go, it's never going to go to 3D, then that's an okay title. Doesn't worry me. So I'll close that up. And I want to show you sort of how I did this. What I like is that with this history bar, you actually get the ability to sort of see the process unfold a little bit. So it also allows you to make changes in the past that can affect the future, as I call it, sort of the Michael J. Fox effect. You have to be careful about it because anything that you do kind of back in here, when you go back into the sort of future line, it will affect everything. So I started adding some really basic stuff. Here's my first sketch. I started kind of drawing these out, and then I just kind of wanted to make it a little bit bigger, and I chose like a much simpler design to sort of work just in this area, which I think just made it easier on my eyes, basically. And one of the first things that I did, I'm going to make sure that these bodies are on, and we can see, is I wanted to create a sketch on a particular plane. And if I open up my guides here, you can see what I did first is I selected one of, you can see it went from here to here. All I did was select one of these objects here, and I extruded it up. Okay, so the extrusion, comes from here. What I did, which I think is pretty simple, generally to get my height um, for the Muqarnas vault itself, the individual tiers. If we go to right click and say edit feature, you can see that I multiplied um, the you can see here is the width. This is the width of the square, and I just multiplied it by 2, so that this is a 2 by 1 relationship between the footprint and its elevation. Okay, so in order to do that, what I did was say I want to measure, and I'm going to measure, okay, this line, that's how high I want it to make it. And then you can just do some basic math in here and just say times 2. That's it. So the little asterisk kind of gives you the multiplication. And that's pretty simple. From there, this is the part that I'm going to sort of concentrate on. This is the way that we're going to design our curve, and we want it something about like this. So let me turn this particular sketch off. Okay, I can turn off all these sketches actually. It's fine. And I think I'll create like a new sketch just on the front face, even though we don't really need it there, just to show you how it works. So I'm going to go to create sketch, and I'm going to select the front. Okay. And you can see there's a face here, but there's also a few lines. What I want to do is just select these two, and I'm going to offset them just to bring it in, and I'm going to say -0.2 because we still need a frame for everything, so that's why I'm doing that. I'm going to select both of these, and you'll see why in a minute. I'm going to select both of these new lines I created and hit the X key to turn them into what are called construction lines, so that they don't kind of get in the way temporarily. I will be drawing right over top of them a little later. So to create that curve, the mathematical function that they came up with for this is actually kind of, I think, relatively elegant. If you were to take a line, and I'll show you this one here, I'm going to, it doesn't matter like how far it is yet. What I really want to do is make sure that it's 30 degrees, but has to be 30 degrees in the opposite direction. So I hit tab to switch over to my angle, and then you can see right where this little X hits there, that's telling you that that's the length that intersects with that previous line. Okay, so I need a 30-degree angle here. I think this can be a construction line for now too. The next thing that I need to do is to divide this diagonal line into fifths. And that's actually not that, it really isn't very complicated. It's a little bit more complicated than some CAD software is. But what I'm going to do is just start by creating a point, put it on this end here. I'll select it. And what I want to do is create a pattern that goes down here and breaks and adds a new point every sixth division or so. So I need 6 of them to get a division of 5. So I'm going to say rectangular pattern, and right away my habit is to lower this. This is if you're going in 2 different directions. If you're doing like a rectangular pattern, like a grid, I need this down to 1. I want my direction to be this direction, so you can see it switched that line. I want, I think, 6 of these. And my distance, I'm going to hit measure, and it already knows what I'm trying to measure because of what I selected, but I would select this line. And so since I have 6 total, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but that breaks it into chunks of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and that's okay for me. The next thing that I know is this 2/5 relationship right here. I want another point down here that is that same 2/5 width. So there's a couple ways to do this. What I like is just to sort of pretend that we're using a compass. I'm going to go to arc and center point arc, and I'm going to say, okay, well, the distance from here to here, I want to know what that distance is down here. And as it turns out, that's where it lands. So I'm going to select this and hit X. Okay, so now I have a point here that I can use. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is find, what I'm really looking for is a curve that goes this direction, and then it's going to intersect both of these 2 points. So what I'm going to do is, again, use this sort of compass simulator tool, this center point arc, and I'm going to draw a circle or an arc that is has the diameter diagonally between here and here, and I'll draw one just kind of basic curve. I'll put an X here, and I'll do the same thing with my other center point arc going the opposite direction here. And where these 2 cross, this is going to be an object that is going to be tangent to this point and this point if I draw a circle there. Let me show you what I mean by that. From this intersection, I can go to here or there. And you'll notice that what tangency means, if we don't remember this is a point on the circle that strikes this line and no other place. It only strikes the line in that one location for both of those. So it basically ensures that you get a nice perfect curve right here. Okay, so instead of a circle that wasn't the best, I'm just going to make it a little bit simpler and do a center point arc again, go from here and here to here. And this time I'm going to keep it as a proper line. And then I can kind of draw things out from there. So I'm going to draw right over top of what I did, these construction lines in this case, so that I know everything that I need is going to be a solid line, which actually separates, as we remember from before, separates these parts into like separate pieces, right? So it's ignoring those dotted lines, okay? And that's all we need. So from there, this one example that we've got right here is all I needed to do to create that. So I'm going to hit Finish Sketch here. I'm going to turn that particular sketch off for now so that I can show off a little bit as we roll through the document. What I've done is I started on this side, and this really is coming from a really simple place. We have this Muqarnas vault here that is the one, actually the one I'm trying to simulate is just here. I just keep it a little here. So this is what I'm trying to simulate right here. And this diagram is telling me the direction that everything needs to kind of unfold. So this means that this is the base and that it's rolling up in this direction. So that's like from here to here. So the arrows are always pointed in the direction where the curve is going and where the object is moving up. Okay, so it's here to here and here to here, etc. Okay, so I need this and this to match. So going back to Fusion quickly, all I have to do is do this once, and it's a simple rotation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of that object and get rid of my guide. You can see I've made a copy paste, and then I've moved it, okay, down to the edge. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it in, and I'm going to use this command right here, which is, you can see this is the combine command. I'm going to take, if we look to the left here, I open up these bodies here. See, there's a square and I call them square and square because that's where they come from. These are being combined into one piece. And once I've got that, there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with this. You can move this out and create a copy of it. You can rotate that out as we're seeing here. We can also start to do some additional things where we want to take our initial object here to create a new guide for the rhombus shape. I'm going to move the rhombus up because that's where I want to be drawing. And then I can draw that exact same pattern right on here. That's the way that I did it here. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can actually copy and paste, but if you guys really get into that, I can show you how to do that. Here, what we're seeing is I'm creating one version of this on this side, as you can see here. And I'm going to turn my guide off and turn my plane on. What I've done right here is this is called a plane through, this is called a construction plane, and I'm adding it between 3 points. So if you have 3 points, you can have a plane. And I definitely have that. If we look down on here, I can select this point right here, this button right here for create a construction plane through 3 points and go 1, 2, and 3, right? So it would be 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and I'll hit cancel there. All right, so that's how that gets created. So that anything that you've done on one side, and the other issue is when you create this, just to go back a little bit, I don't want to, for instance, I don't want to do what I did with the square, which is use the extrude command because it really is only going to work in parallel. What I want to do instead is use the sweep tool. So the sweep tool, if I open this up, is a lot like that extrude tool. It takes one piece and it moves it in a particular direction, but your path can be particular. So you can say, my path, I want it to go this direction, or I could have said, I want it to go that direction. And that's the direction it would go. I don't want that, so I'm just going to hit cancel. So that's pushing it this way, not pushing it perpendicular to the original sketch in that direction. I hope that makes sense to you. And the reason for that is because what we're going to do is use this particular plane here to create a really simple mirror tool so that this object is mirrored on both sides. And from there, we can do a few other things like create a circular, a cylinder in the center, which allows us then to create a new guide that we can use as a pattern maker. So for instance, let me show you what happens when you create a pattern. All right, so here's an example. What I've done here is we just did, this many pieces, and we're going to create a pattern. So I'm just going to select, and right here you can see I only really am showing you a handful of these, but I selected 4 objects. My axis was this one that I created in the middle, and it started spinning everything around it. Okay, so if you all want to see this, what I'll do is I'll share this whole project with you, and you all can go through it on your own, just to see how it works. I don't want to make this a particularly long video, I want to go over one last example here. These are a little bit more complicated. What I did in this case is I'm editing really just the size of an object that already exists. So let me just sort of maybe show you on the other example. So once I have something in place, like if I wanted to, I don't know, see if we can get an example. Let's say I wanted to sweep this object or maybe even extrude it along this line here, the same direction or same length. I could just select that side of the object, which we know will match our original drawing. And we can hit extrude. And when we hit extrude, we can say, oh, well, I want to move it to the distance of wherever this object is, which is fine. I also want to make sure that it's a new body, so it's going to be a totally new object that I can then move around. Um, and from there, I can do. There's just really no end of things that I can do with it. If I wanted to, I'm going to hit OK. Um, Once I've created that object, I can also use objects like this in the bottom to cut through. Okay, so for instance, if you've got the right object that you want, but you want to just sort of trim it down after the fact, this is a technique that I use a lot. Is just to sort of cut this through like this and use the cut function. Okay, so that is another kind of trick that you can do with solid modeling. So really everything is going to be based off of this floor, and you're going to see in the end I had to drop everything. Like, so here are my almond shapes, right? This is an almond, um, and it has this particular shape is going to be identical to the one that's right here and right here. Okay, and that's really the goal that you're looking for. Okay, so we're going to go over that in class. All right, so I'm going to end this here, and just to kind of give you guys a brief overview of what you could do um, with these techniques, and I think it'll probably make a little bit more sense in class once you. But I wanted you all to also have this resource as well.